Okay, Molly, I'm gonna go, you're gonna go. Prompt for Roger. Okay, there we go.
Said Chris. Chris.
It being 2:45, the public hearing to order for the, to receive comments on the proposed December budget amendment for fiscal year 2024. And we're about to have all of our members seated here.
What's the cameras?
Okay, good. So. Let's see, here's, okay. So it's customary, mid fiscal year to take a look at the budget that was passed roughly 6 months earlier and make modifications to, conform with reality, shall we say? Because, you know, it's forecasting various elements in the budget 6 months in advance will result in some, for sure, uncertainties. And so I would call it a tuning rather than a revision. And that's what we did at the budget committee meeting earlier this month. And so there has been produced a proposed budget amendment for which I would like to entertain any comments on by the public or anybody else.
Because nobody else, I gotta say, I think that CapEx plan is woeful. And is now the third CapEx plan you've handed us that was not what the paper is printed on. And it makes me think that we're not communicating effectively with you that this is important, that this needs to be a priority. It's a $4 million fund. We're gonna have another $1 million in it this year. You've got no plan whatsoever to spend any of the money in the next 9 years. It's not, does it still count as an expenditure plan if there's no expenditures plan? I'm gonna say no. So I don't know when we're gonna get it across to you that these, setting us these CapEx plans that are just, you know, this one dealing where I could use is pathetic, that you can't just keep sending us these plans that look like this. That if you're not up to figuring out how to spend the $4 million, we should need to figure out a different structure, need to figure out somebody else to be responsible for it. You know, this one paper is the plan to spend the $4 million that comes in the general fund every year. The CapEx plan is half of one piece of paper and it has nothing but blanks on it. And I don't know where that just isn't cutting it with me. I'm embarrassed to be associated with the plan.
So John, I think your concern is in the out years, not in fiscal 24, correct?
Right, fiscal 24, that spending, you know, we've approved, it's almost all been done, but there's no out year spending at all in the next 7 years, no spending described. This fund will probably grow to be 10 million or larger. I think we should be pushing to a level where we're spending at least as much as the yearly ad, right? Because remember, we're adding sort of 800 grand, $1 million every year. And I'm concerned that we have no plan as to how to spend the $4 million that's going to be in there at the end of this fiscal.
Okay, so let's talk about how we do what you're suggesting, which is basically we basically want a set of projects with associated costs for the out years.
Well, right. Yeah, I mean, I think it can be a mix. I think there can be some projects that are just out there in the stratosphere on the right side of the spreadsheet, and then we haven't identified a year or don't really have a firm grip on the amount.
Mm-hmm.
But this is saying we're not going to do any CapEx spending next year, is what that
Which is unrealistic.
and isn't desirable.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, so my question is, have we given Chris, clear direction that we see spending these funds as being a priority? Obviously, spending them in a meaningful way,
Of course.
but that this is a priority for us, that we want to see these funds get deployed. Otherwise, I think honestly, we should start thinking about,
Rolling it back.
how do we get the money back? What can we do to, and that, none of those answers are the right long-term answers, cut sales tax or something for a couple of years just to make this go away. That doesn't seem like the right plan. A better plan would be to think about how to constructively do 3 or 4 of these items and show that as next year's, spending as of today, spending plan as of today.
Well,
So I was gonna say, I have
Go
a
ahead.
comment on it, but I don't know if I need to do this, because I know we're in a public hearing right now technically. So I know I was gonna talk about this more in the town agenda item.
It seemed like you wanted to talk about it now. I agree. We can talk about it in the
Yeah, I
budget
just didn't
item
know
if
if
you
we need to
want.
adjourn, because I know we're in a public hearing, so I didn't know if we needed to adjourn.
well, in the absence of any other public, I thought we might use this. Oh, excuse me. We do have an input from the public.
Yeah, I'm Joe Mattingly, and if you have,
Can you just select your recording so
Sure.
we can get your audio? Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And will you reintroduce yourself, sir?
yeah, I'm Joe Mattingly. And my concern about the residents, certainly of the volleyball court on the regular in the summer. And if you got, did you say $5 million?
It'll be somewhere between 4 and 5 million at the end of this fiscal year.
Well, as a person that comes up and down the canyon, and I understand their concerns about transportation, certainly in the winter, it seems to me, as I mentioned, taking some of that budget, applying it to some heavy duty vans. You guys are more personable about bus. I think would be dollars well spent. You can figure it out. Those vans probably go, if they max out at 75,000, probably less. You could take $1 million of those dollars, buy as many of those vans as you wanted, take what the balance is, use it as your capital operating budget for the year. Charge a small fee if you have to, preferably not. Like Park City that has free buses up and down from Jeremy Ranch all the way up to Deer Valley. Be a leader on this issue. And if you lead, I will follow.
Okay, thank you. Any other public inputs? Okay, so is it within the rules that?
I think you should stay focused on, I think that there is a tie, certainly, but I would try and stay focused on what the public hearing is for. And we have to keep the public hearing open for the duration that we posted it for.
Okay, got that.
So,
Okay.
we have,
About 7 minutes left.
well,
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
yes, we have 7 minutes left to
Okay.
have a conversation or allow public input on the
2 minutes
fiscal year.
left, because the motion to adjourn can happen in 2 minutes.
Okay, anything else? I mean, the fact is that we do have a wish list of future projects, which we have not just distributed into the budget plan, which is, I think, what you're looking for.
Yeah, there's got to be at least a couple of those wish list projects that we could wrap our arms around doing this summer. And that's all I'm asking for, is that it's supposed to be an ongoing expenditure plan.
Got it.
There is a column for fiscal year 2024 and the capital projects projects we're gonna do. Your concern is the future unknown date column.
Well, the one that we're in now is fiscal 24,
Yeah.
and nearly all of those have been done. So
Yeah.
what's next is my question.
And to be fair to staff, I've been on the budget committee for 8 years now. This is the biggest, most robust capital projects plan I've seen, and I know that they've been working hard on it. And so I don't know if I would consider a waste of time, or I think it's just a work in progress, because I think that, like I said, we've had a capital projects fund for a long time, but I've never seen it kind of planned out like this before. And I think we're working there, but I do think some of these projects, we should try to earmark a little bit better than just saying future unknown date. But at the same time, this is better than I've seen.
I think I agree with you and draw a distinction between how we did this year, how Chris did this year, which, we had some applause at the budget meeting for, and I think that, the 24 plan came off pretty well. And so, that's a reason to celebrate, but there needs to be a 25 plan on the horizon, something on the horizon, and that's all I'm saying is it can't just be 7 years of zero out there.
So we need technical input to develop plans for multi-year projects. And that's one of the primary purposes of the budget amendment is to budget for funds to hire engineers to do water and sewer system master planning. So you and I have talked about that a lot, and I'm glad that we seem to be past that. We've also talked about a facilities master plan. Absent a facilities master plan, strategic approach to our buildings, we don't know which one to prioritize. We don't have the technical input to understand what the major capital needs on the existing buildings are. So we're just not ready.
All right. Yeah, but we shouldn't have these lapses is the point. And I don't think everything on that list falls into that. Such a quandary. Things like replacing the windows at Alta Central. Yeah. How come that can't be in next year's? What's that waiting on?
Well, I think it can, but we haven't developed the 25 budget yet. So that's just been our process historically, John. We haven't started the fiscal year 25 budget yet. That's when we'll decide what projects to do in fiscal 25.
But that's what I'm trying to say is no longer an adequate approach because we need to look beyond the end of our nose. We need to look beyond the next accounting period and have an ongoing plan. And that's what I find discouraging about this.
I think we can populate those out years with various projects.
I think we should.
Okay, well, let's give it a try. Okay. Any further input from the public? In which case I will entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Okay, all in favor?
Hi.
Aye. All right, we have now 2 minutes of rest period. Recess, I guess it's called in school.
School break.
See, in this moment, has everybody gotten to know?
I think he shook everyone's hand, but it might be a nice time to. Chris, I don't think they've all.
Have you guys decided how it's gonna go? Chris 1, Chris 2, thing 1, thing 2?
Well,
You
there's
guys worked
Templin,
that
there's also
out?
Templin, and the marshals already have like a radio code that's C1 through 7 or something, so. It's something to figure out.
Okay.
You know.
This
We
is
have
my
some
first
other
question to
options,
them.
so.
And
Chris
I haven't gotten it.
Yeah.
Nice.
CC and CO.
CC and CO.
Yeah,
Nice.
but when you call the office, you may get Chris Templin, and you should assume it's not one of us.
Okay.
General public
And who's template?
tends to struggle. Yeah, Chris Templin.
You've been a advisor for 20 years.
You probably thought you were talking to me.
Well, I know a lot of first names,
Yeah.
so that is.
Be careful.
Maybe a
It's one
last
of the-
name community though. It's kind of, the tone out there on the slopes.
Right.
Oh, we
that'd be
gotta-
happy.
completely off.
Easier for me.
Yeah. So you're here and you've been going back east a lot, or you're going to be back there in January?
Gone back once a month for 2 years.
Oh, boy.
And,
Right. I'm all for that.
that's my like chunk to go back. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think for me.
my parents still live in the same house as they were down there 65 years ago. They're 93 and 90. They have 24/7
She
care.
probably doesn't look.
So I have to go back there and do like a bunch of like
Well, just the
house stuff. and
two
finance
previous
stuff
ones
and
that were
everything.
presented.
So, you ready?
You know.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I would like to call to order the Alta Town Council meeting of Wednesday, December 13th, 2023. And our first order of business is to entertain any citizen input. So those citizens who are in the room who might like to make an input, please raise your hand. Okay. So I believe we might have a citizen online who wants to make an input.
Yes, Margaret Burke is online and she should be ready to make her comment whenever she's ready.
Okay.
Thank you for allowing an opportunity to speak remotely. First question is whether we have sought reimbursement from the Bureau of Reclamation for the Grizzly Water Line, which has been a work in process for quite some time. Secondly, I sent 2 emails to town council and staff today. One, I wanted to just highlight one of the things in there, and that is that I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Councilwoman Sheridan Davis for her 6 years of service to the citizens of Alta, and how she has courageously taken positions that might not agree with her colleagues and or her work employment situation. And I appreciate someone who has the fortitude to do that. And so let me express that gratitude. And then lastly, I wanted to make a brief comment about the Little Cottonwood Canyon gondola survey that's on the town council agenda number 8, as well as a resolution related to that. I think this is very important issue for the town and for the immediate area of the town, and I would like to see more robust interaction and citizenship involvement through something like an open house. And if that's not possible, at least citizen dialogue in a town council meeting, not restricted to 3 minutes, so that council and citizens can have an opportunity to freely discuss the issue. I think this is as important and actually more so than the community center building, which occupied a lot of our time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burke.
May we ask some follow-up questions?
What's
Just with
the-
regard to her letter,
Oh,
I had,
is
is she
this-
still on the
is that
letter?
allowed?
I think so.
Okay.
If the citizen was presented. Margaret, are you still with us?
I am.
Thank you for your kind words. Would you mind expanding on the letters that you shared with the council? I thought your points were very cogent, but I'm not sure I could wrap my mind around the argument. And so particularly around the different water districts and how we might look at this debt. If you wouldn't mind expanding on some of that thinking, I am sorry to put you on the spot, but I'd love to hear more.
Thank you. Part of this came from communications that I had over the past with Keith Hansen, who you know was the supervisor of Salt Lake Service Area number 3 for a long time, and also with John Goldner. And neither one of them was available to really make comments, and obviously Piper and Kate are gone as well. But in communication that I have had, it was that our records as a town do not identify these monies as a loan. There is nothing in the documentation to that effect. And therefore, to just assume that there is repayment that's required seemed to me to be a leap that we shouldn't make. If we decide we want to consider it a loan, that's one thing, but just to jump to say that it was a loan and therefore repayment is necessary, I think is not what either I got from Keith or from John. So I never looked at the books at that time. I wasn't allowed to do so, I don't think, unless it was a published document. not until I came onto the council. So, and going back over history like that, because there was a transition between Kate and Piper, was not possible either. Piper was still trying to get up to speed when Kate was still there in that short period. So I don't have a lot more to tell you. John might be able to speak to it, but I just, I caution the council to just assume that it's a loan when prior clerks and prior accountants and auditors were not able to so characterize.
Thank you. And I think you made the additional point that there's an argument to be made that this would be an overall improvement that wouldn't necessarily have negative impact on both water districts. Could you expand on that?
I think my idea is that anytime we make an improvement to a public utility where there is a combination, whether the combination is upstream or downstream, that potentially benefits both. So my thought was that at least from the beginning, from incorporation and annexation of those areas that are going to be double taxed if we didn't separate them clearly, that those areas received a benefit from any improvements that we've made to this system. But again, because we don't know exactly where that expense, the 300K, when did it happen? What is it for what benefit? I think that it's unfair to characterize it as solely for the benefit of the water users of the town and not a benefit to the service area water users as well.
Thank you.
Tell you what, this item is number 11 on our agenda today. And fortunately, John Goldner, who's is at least monitoring this online. I wonder if when we come to item 11, we could invite John to enter into this discussion. Allowed?
Although I didn't ask him to speak, so I apologize if I'm putting you on the spot, John.
Well, it is a little bit on the spot, but I never had any problem talking. So if you would allow me to talk, that'd be more. I don't have a whole lot to say about this, but happy to discuss it when it comes up.
Okay, we'll do it in that order.
Cool, thank you.
Any other public input? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to Mike Mon in the Alta ski area, but I don't see him here. And we're going to join us online or no data. Okay. So let's move on to the questions regarding the department report. Department reports are extensive. So, John, you look like you have a question.
Oh, no, I'm just sitting here listening. I thought most of the department reports were okay. I didn't really have anything out of them.
Okay. Let's make sure I got it. Well, Alan, Elise, or Sheridan, any other questions regarding department reports?
I have a question more just, I know Chris mentioned this, but we have parking reservations on Friday.
Yes, we do.
Implementing, so I hope our residents.
That's a good reminder. Good
So,
reminder.
a reminder.
And I was reminded today and paid my own, and it was quite seamless. I was pleased to see that. It had my records from last year that I could select my license plate number and cough up my $250, and presumably I'm in the system.
Did it change your behavior?
Did it change my behavior? I'm not sure I did say that.
Well, whatever we're doing in Little Cottonwood, helped big cut.
So they do start tomorrow.
Friday.
The 15th.
Friday,
Okay.
yeah, Friday,
Friday morning.
Friday.
yes.
And for most people, they're just for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah, except for the
October.
night, in town, our night one is daily.
And holidays, defined holiday periods.
Yeah, it was interesting. I found that I was authorized to park for 4,000 hours. Yeah, that's what the website said.
It's kind of an off-the-shelf product that's heavily modified for Alta.
Yeah,
And so some of the things like $1,000 rack price and the 4,000 hour parking allowance or something like that, or why they can't erase that from the programming, but
but
I
that's
don't
where
seem
we
to be
are.
able to, so.
So I guess the fourth, I don't know when the 4,000 hours starts, but.
Friday morning at 6 a.m. That's what he said.
Okay, any other questions or comments on the,
So this is within the consent agenda?
yeah, there's questions on the, yes.
Did you see?
Department reports.
Oh, okay, well, within the consent agenda, I guess this is a minutes question, or minutes comment. Did you see the comment I made about?
That one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you okay with that?
Yes,
I thought it better captured the.
When we get to the next, when we get to approving the minutes, we have a,
Okay,
Okay, and then should I have hold my other comment till we get to that ordinance? Okay. I have no more comments on the consent agenda.
all right. In that case, don't we have to, take action to approve the?
well, this is where the agenda is just a little
What
funny
is it? Yeah,
sometimes,
this
and
is our
the
question
lines
section.
get blurred
Yeah.
between agenda items, so we do have a department report, so that if there's any program project that the council wants to dive into, we have that opportunity. And then we
Then we
see the approval of the consent agenda more as just kind of an action of like approving the minutes in the finance reports. So usually we try and get the bulk of the conversation done first, and then we go into the motion to approve the minutes and all that. That being said, I think we're broaching on that subject. So, in the minutes for November, on page 5, we have some suggested edits that you will see on the screen in front of you. They're very modest, but they capture, I think, the conversation more accurately. And so would like for the council to adopt the minutes with these edits as submitted.
So-
Hopefully you all, I mean, I know it's hard to see track changes in the moment and adopt them, but these are fairly simple.
So did you make these changes?
John did, but I
Okay.
looked at this one and told him that I was fine with them. But that's what I was trying to get across,
Elise
yeah.
expressed hesitation about the tone of the draft letter that you got as written, as the condo proposal itself.
Yeah, and I took,
She shared concerns about bullying and so forth.
And then if you look a little bit farther down on the screen, there is the paragraph that says the overall tone of the discussion reflected a thoughtful and cautious gondola proposal, with council members expressing a desire for thorough evaluation of phase 1 and phase 2 results and exploration of alternative solutions before making any decisions.
Okay. Are those the only
Those are the only, Yeah.
suggested modifications?
thankfully they fit on one screen.
Yes,
It worked out well.
thankfully.
So, yeah, whoever makes the motion, just
I'll
maybe
say-
make some language referring to this. if
I
you so-
will move that we approve the consent agenda with these adjustments in the minutes that are on the screen.
Okay,
Second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed. All right, so a minute early, we're to Mike Mon.
Just in time.
You sure did.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So we're happy to report, we have all of our lifts now running. And right now, we have more snow than any ski area in North America. So no doubt this year, I don't know if it will stay that way for very long. We're in a little bit of a dry spell here for a little while. But this, just as a reminder, this Friday will be the first day that parking reservations start here within the ski area. And all north side parking also
there will be reservation required for overnight and daytime parking starting Friday. Which would just be weekends and holidays. Following Friday, it will be the start of the Christmas holiday period, which will go through January 1st. Parking reservations will be required every day. So far, it looks good. I just checked before we came over, and we still have reservations availability for this weekend, several hundred left. If it plays out like last year, they fill up the afternoon before the morning up generally. But we anticipate that we will be fully reserved out on the days that we have reservations, except for Fridays. Fridays were a little, they may not play out that way, it's there. We opened with a fairly, we had a 50-inch storm followed by a 28-inch storm in the last few weeks, on top of some rotten layers of snow. So we had some active avalanches the week before last in particular, when we had openings that we were delayed 3-4 days in a row. We had some rather later openings as our patrol got out of the mountain and were doing the work and encountered more activity. We needed more mitigation work than we had anticipated for we could open. So we had some delays there, but we're hoping that most of that rotten snow issue is behind us now in most of the areas. We were able to get a lot of it to slide, and so we're looking good there. Just got off we had a phone call today with all of the ICON partners across the nation. ICON passed their goal of 1 million pass holders on Saturday for this coming season. So they're live and well. They reported that the Salt Lake market only grew by 5%, which was whereas the system as a whole grew by about a little over 10%. So it seems like the Salt Lake market may have plateaued out a little bit based upon number of ICON pass holders that are there and the number of people that have season passes to the other ski areas. They're going. We did have a discussion also with Interstate today. Parking asked them for a report on how things were going in our neighboring canyon across the way in Big Cottonwood, and they indicated that they saw some of the same feedback that we had here at Alta the first year, where people were initially not very happy about the idea, didn't think like they had enough reservations and such, but they felt like the tide was already starting to change over there. But it has been. So that Big Cottonwood Canyon will also be going to Solitude will bring on reservations, roadside parking reservations will be implemented in addition to Brighton's reservations on Friday also. So Friday will be a big day for the Cottonwood Canyons as a whole, because reservations will be required everywhere except for some of the parking in Snowbird still. That is there. And that's about all I have, unless you have some specific questions about the ski or anything that you're wanting to know.
I noticed the backside is not open yet.
Well, we have a really big slide on it. So backside was one of those areas where when they threw a shot off on that with a nice cloudy, foggy morning, you couldn't see anything, and they threw a shot and didn't know it slid very far, and it broke out all the way across the backslide, slid down across and up onto Home Run. And given the nature and size of that, and that we didn't really have that area fully closed, it put us into a search and rescue state for a few hours to clear the debris. But we haven't had enough snow to really open it. We'd hoped to open it today, but the wind last night made havoc of it, kind of stripped it and made it so it's not as good. We're just going to take it, evaluate it day by day, and we hope to get it open, get some people out there at some point in time. But there's most of the snow on the backside's not there. It's down at the bottom. Now you don't want to see out there. But you're bottom side. That's what's going on. So, but we have had some really positive reports from people who have come. They're very pleased and say that we've got the best ski product in the state right now here at Alta. How good the young friends are. They're out there. And hopefully you've all had a chance to go up and ski the new runoff of Supreme.
Yeah, I did that about 2 hours ago. I was very pleased.
We're pleased with the result that is there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you heard anything from UDOT about the possibility of bringing back the Wasatch bus line?
what's that?
Connect- I'm sorry.
Cottonwood Connect?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's it.
Oh,
And
no,
also-
Cottonwood Connect is different than
I'm thinking about, yeah, the Wasatch Boulevard, yeah,
UTA
that,
953.
Nine fifty-three from UTA, no.
yeah.
UTA is still operating on the basis that they are required to restore their other routes first to less privileged neighborhoods or stuff. I don't know what the official terminology was, but more of the routes that are needed for people to commute to and from work and those type of things from the disadvantaged state neighborhoods. So they have to bring all those online before they can bring back more ski service. So they saying it's not gonna happen this winter. And then we'll be looking again to see where they're at next winter. And then there's, the big discussion now is if UDOT gets through their EIS or their legal challenges or whatever, and they have the charge to bring on a bus service where they use UTA, where they do something else. We don't know where that's going. No one knows at this point in time. But somehow, the goal is that bus service would be significantly increased back in the canyon. It's interesting, in 1996, we had 87 buses a day that come to Alta. We have 23 a day that come to Alta today. So it just kind of shows you we've kind of went backwards. So
We should let the people who think that the gondola is the solution emphasize that. I mean, that's incredible, 60 less buses a day.
So
I
we're-
assume that there were people on those 60 buses.
Well, and that's the other thing, is the ridership back in those days was almost 800,000. Till it got on Canyon, and it's like 100,000 or less than on bus. Public transit. It's changed to different.
And just before COVID, was it, like, does anybody think it has something to do with COVID?
COVID dramatically impacted. We had started to see reductions in bus service before COVID too. We weren't at that number we had. I think we were more down in the 60s. Bus trips before COVID. But COVID definitely impacted the ridership numbers. And I don't know. The buses we have now generally, once we get into the peak periods, are full. You know, they're extremely full. It's you know, when they start operating those first few weekends, no one rode the bus for that a little bit, but it was just the wrong time and for people to be. Yeah, we're gonna continue to work on ideas on how to get traffic out of Alta on days when the road gets slicked or just when the snowbird's full and the main line and such, but looking at trying to maybe do some more avalanche studies on Superior to see if there's something that can be done to on a more regular basis when we get the storm periods. So kind of what we're about and looking, and we're just geared up and preparing for the busiest week of the year. That's not too far away. Which will be between Christmas and New Year's.
However, at least the 10-day forecast looks pretty dry.
It does. Yeah, it looks like right after that, it might get wet.
Okay.
At least
Oh, yeah. 10-day plus forecasts are pretty unreliable.
everybody if you follow that buoy and the
Yeah,
the power buoy,
it's the
Just
18th.
it popped.
Yeah.
So, any questions, Mike, from the staff or from the council?
Good job getting it on open.
Well done.
Yeah.
Skiing good.
It is skiing good, yeah. Thank you for your support and help.
You're welcome. On behalf of the council.
Skiing well,
Yeah.
that'd be better English.
That was Guido.
Skiing good's like fun.
All right, that brings us to, let's see.
I think it's your report.
Okay, you think it is too, all right, that's kind of where I was. All right, this is the mayor's report for December 13th. First item is a group with roots in Alta and branches in Canyon that made some headlines on December 5th when they filed and announced a lawsuit challenging elements of the UDOT Oconwood Canyon EIS and seeking common sense solutions. This week, as illustrated in the front page of the Salt Lake Tribune today, Salt Lake City, Sandy City, and Save Our Canyons filed actions with civil authorities. The town held the ballot canvass certifying results of the November election. I'm proud that more than 50% of our registered voters cast their vote off your election. And that is more than any other entity in this larger community except two. One was an initiative in Brighton, and the other was a Salt Lake City. And I think that's great that we get that kind of turnout. It's a place where every vote counts. So Elise Morgan was reelected and is having served 10 years. Now, sorry, on for.
Permanent fixture.
Dan Schilling, I'm sure everybody knows, I hope everybody knows, was reelected. And now the new town council members will be sworn in at noon on January 2nd here. Okay, all are invited. And do we serve any sort of refreshments or thought of that yet? No, all right.
It's simple and.
Okay, I made some comments at the canvas that I will expand on now because of a much smaller audience there. Sheridan Davis has served with honor and dignity as a council person for 6 years. She has truly been a representative of the people. She has inspired us. She has kept us on the right path and led us in the right direction when the path was unclear. She's reminded us of the situation of many who work here but don't live here. They're citizens too. In July, she introduced us into new insights on how mountain towns are evolving and a whole new way of thinking about the future. I went back and reread that recently. I still haven't been able to wrap my head around it, but there's some really interesting stuff in there. And, you know, that's something I think we want to return to and think some more. Her contribution to this community will not be and certainly should not be forgotten. Sheridan has always been a ray of sunshine in our proceedings. Okay, so talking about a ray of sunshine, it brings us to the astronomy report. In 9 days, on December 22nd, we will be at winter solstice. The interval between sunrise and sunset will be 9 hours and 15 minutes. Then the days will be getting longer until summer solstice in June, when it will be 14 hours, 45 minutes. So you may ask, why isn't the solstice on December 21st like all the calendars? It's because the Earth orbits the sun in 365.25 days, almost. Next year, we'll get back on schedule by adding a February 29th. And then some of the come back and talk about it almost. Okay, the next town council meeting will be on Wednesday, January 10th at 3 p.m. and it will be hybrid like this one. That ends my mayor's report. And I want to go to item 7, which is discussion and possible action to appoint a town manager by a resolution 2023-R22. And to give some background on this, must be a fire someplace. 6 months or so ago, John Golan retired, and we appointed Chris Colley, now 2 Chris's, so we've got to be able to distinguish between them, as the interim town manager. And in that 6-month period, he has acted, I think, with vigor and with professionalism. And in my opinion, has fully vetted, you might say, tested to be the permanent town manager. And so with that, I would like to introduce Resolution 2023 R22 to appoint Chris the permanent town manager. Do I need a motion for that, or can we just have a discussion first? What's the protocol?
Usually,
You
motion.
do a motion.
Motion, okay,
So moved.
so moved, all right,
Seconded.
second, all right, open for discussion.
Chris is awesome.
Yeah, I don't, I don't,
And a fantastic,
we're-
long-standing member of the community. I am told, I don't know why we have to look around.
what she said.
Thirdly.
I didn't have a discussion.
Yeah, I'm very in favor of Chris getting the job and, you know, think this appointment is somewhat overdue. I do think that this resolution would be improved by,
That's
There it
the
is.
track changes.
that's the track changes. I'm not sure I read that track changes.
So,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for.
yeah.
Good, thank you.
So John brought up that it said that the mayor and the town council had appointed Chris the interim, which never happened. So
Okay.
anyways, we're making that edit here by suggesting that this resolution be edited to say that the mayor had designated Chris as the interim, just a correction. on the
Right, we
language.
never consented to Chris, and I think that's because he was interim, so my thinking was we thought that we didn't need to consent to it since we weren't making the permanent manager yet. And that's what's happening now. This is our formal consent,
Okay,
so just seemed like get it right.
all right, got it right.
Feel like Chris is Alta. We're lucky to have him. We're lucky to have his service. Grateful to know him personally, and I don't think the town could be in better hands.
Okay, look, we're starting to blush.
He already wanted me there.
All in favor? All in favor? Aye.
This is a resolution, so sorry, I wasn't fast enough. I'm gonna call it a call
All right.
vote. Councilmember Byrne,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Mayor Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Morgan.
Aye.
Councilmember Ansel.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, unanimous, yes. Want to say anything?
Well.
Are you defining now?
Not excited about it.
You didn't ask me.
Oh, look, here's
Yeah.
somebody on the outside.
Thank you.
If I can butt in, thank you very much. I know that Chris has been through the ringer the last few months, and this is perfect timing, if not overdue. So good job.
Thank you, John. Yes, and thank you all for your support. I did just want to mention a couple kind of housekeeping items relating to the town manager ordinance. And I'm just trying to pull my notes on that. So the town manager ordinance requires me to furnish a fidelity bond at the expense of the town. With what reads like a kind of a random amount of coverage, and Jen called the Utah Government's Trust, where which provides our bonds. And they let us know that a change in state code and we already have insurance that sort of provides the same effect as a fidelity bond, take it out solely for me and my performance. So we've not taken out a fidelity bond because the coverage is there. Jen did price out a bond with $70,000 of coverage, and it would cost $245 or something like that. But we wanted to sort of get your thoughts on whether it would satisfy the council to assume that we make a slight ordinance amendment in January, given that we don't need that bond anymore. The coverage is already in place and the state code doesn't require us to have that special bond.
Sounds sensible to me.
I don't even remember.
It used to be customary language, and I think when this was being drafted, it was just kind of, they were compiling, Cameron and Chris and Cameron can speak to this, but compiling from a bunch of other, or
And maybe you could almost word it saying
we're gonna follow state
yeah, exactly.
code, and yeah, there's some language there, and it says crime insurance and It says a bond or crime insurance.
Yes, I was gonna
believe.
say.
And so we'll follow that in our suggested edit to you, but we have $5 million of crime coverage for.
How many? 5 mil?
That we're already paying for.
Yeah,
I believe the intent of why that was in there and what you wanted to accomplish is it's already covered in our policy, so it just, I don't know that it's there.
Sound like fine?
What's that?
Sound like fine?
Sound like a helicopter.
Sorry.
Jay would come in.
Jay doesn't have his radio on.
So that's one housekeeping item that the other.
Is there
my
any
only
concern
comment would be
with that?
$240 isn't very much money. So I mean, it wouldn't have to get too convoluted in trying to change it. It would be easier just to pay the 245 and have a distinct separate policy, but I don't really care.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Right, aren't you saying that the policy, traditional policy that was called for by the ordinance was only $240 a year?
Yes, it's $240 that you,
Don't have this money.
yeah, I know it's not a lot of money, so that's why we were kind of giving you guys the option of like, to be compliant with our own ordinance, we would do it.
I would say I could go either way. We could just buy
So-
that policy and have it separate, and it'd be sort of additional coverage, but I'm also happy to go with the insurance that we're currently getting.
Yeah, I'm working on an amendment in January, matching the
Very
state code.
simple.
Yeah.
We can put that on the agenda.
Have Cameron or Polly weighed in on their thinking?
Cameron's been following along on this. Cameron, do you want to make any comments?
Yeah, I think it's fine either way. It is in our code, but I do agree that the insurance covers the intent of that. A fidelity bond is essentially to cover acts of dishonesty. And so the insurance that we have currently covers that. And so I don't think it's a requirement to do that. I think the coverage we have meets the purpose of the ordinance. But if we want to meet the letter of the ordinance, we can.
I think what he was saying there is, he's not even sure we need to change the ordinance because the coverage conforms with the ordinance.
Is that
Is that what you were saying?
a short form?
Yeah, I mean, at some point, it's nice to get it to the language to actually match what the state code requires, but they change it so frequently. As long as we're meeting the requirement practically, I don't think we have to, follow the exact letter of the law. We have the coverage for the position and for the type of insurance that's required in the bond. So, yeah.
Okay, so the other item is, the council is required to set my compensation by ordinance or by resolution. The ordinance requires the council to set my compensation by resolution. And it overlaps a little bit with another requirement to set all elected and appointed officials' compensation levels by resolution. So we do need to pass a resolution establishing the managers, the clerks, the marshals, the treasurers, and all members of the council and planning commission, all the compensation that those officers of the town receive. So.
We have not done that in a very long time. Don't remember doing that.
But it is required though, and it's like you're supposed to post it every year, I think.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think I've ever remember us doing that.
So that's something we need to do in the future.
Okay.
We're planning on presenting something in January, right?
Along similar type topic, and probably would make sense to clean up at the same time, we're also supposed to give our consent to the slate of officers after every election. And, and we did this, I think we did this when we got elected 2 years ago. But I believe it's after every election cycle. We need to again give consent for the town council, the town attorney, the different officers, the clerk, the town manager, and I believe the marshal as well. And it's just like our normal consent process. I don't see any big issues here. Personally, I'm prepared to give my consent to everyone that's in an existing ordinance, so maybe that'll just be like a sleep easier at night kind of comment, but I don't think there's gonna be a bunch of change, but I do think that we should follow the rule and do the consent process.
Yeah, I think so too. We ought to follow the rule.
Is that, so that was my understanding, and we had a, that is not how the language in the ordinance is now written, though, right? Because you corrected me,
That's not what the town manager ordinance says.
town manager ordinance.
Well, the town manager ordinance doesn't say exactly that, and I don't know where else in the ordinance, there are other provisions in the code that speak to when appointment timelines, or, yeah, I'll say appointment timelines, and I don't remember what those are.
But, you know, what I think is gonna change is in the past, that slate has been proposed by the mayor. And I think now that slate of officers would be proposed by the town manager,
Right.
under the new structure. But maybe Cameron wants to comment on that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look while you're discussing that. I thought we took that out.
Because I was,
It has changed recently.
The
we took
reappointment.
it
I
out.
thought it was John, I was in your same camp that I thought we had to do it, and I have a calendar appointment and all that, these guys are, no.
I mean, the planning commissioners serve
so-
5-year terms, I think, so they're not,
Part of the
isn't
same.
that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
They're rotating.
yeah, we appoint them as their,
Oh, it's staggered, that's correct.
their stuff kind of, but I wanna say the town clerk, marshal, it's not something I think we changed it when we.
When we delegated the mayor's authority to the town manager, we that section of the ordinance. And so the council has direct appointing and unappointing authority for the town manager. And then any other appointment, they have advice and consent for the appointment or removal of any other position in the town. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it would be an advice and consent role.
And then on what timeline, Cameron? Is it recurring?
No, it's only at the time of appointment or at the time of removal. And so if there's a concern or an issue with a current appointed official, the town council can certainly have a closed meeting council discussion on that, and they can take action on that. But there is no, so it used to be after every election, you know, there was a new elected official, that there was a reaffirmation of the existing appointed officials.
Right.
But that is no longer the way the code reads.
I'll send this section of the code to everyone after the meeting.
Is that our town code? Is there state code that's relevant here, Cameron?
No, so the state code did not require the reappointment. That was unique to Alta. And I think that had been because the town officials that were appointed had such a long-standing tenure that when there was a change in political leadership, the town wanted to have that reaffirmation of these are the officials that we want here, even after the elected officials has changed. So it was unique to Alta. And I understand why in the past, but when we changed the organization and delegated some of that authority to the town manager now has the appointment authority to propose those other positions, and the town council has the advice and consent role. And so there is no practical way under the current organization to have that reappointment.
Well, couldn't Craig now, or couldn't Chris now submit for our consent, a list of all the existing appointed people? Because like he hasn't appointed these people, right? These were all people that were appointed before the change in the structure of the town manager mayor relationship. So it seems like the town manager should probably in January, after we've seated the new people, the new elected officials, make an appointment of all of the officers, and then we'll consent to that.
Yeah, there's certainly nothing wrong with the resolution to affirm their appointment, but their appointment under state law carries until the appointment is removed. And so there's no intervening act necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, I think the difference though is that you have a different person appointing them, so why wouldn't we wanna just do the consent process so that everyone who Chris has proposed has been consented to?
Sure. Yeah, there's nothing wrong. We can do a resolution to that
I
effect.
think it would just be tidier.
Sure.
Yeah, new manager.
Okay. Are we,
So we vote on,
We did.
oh, we already voted on Chris?
Yeah, we already voted on Chris.
Yeah,
We can move on.
Joyfully.
Joyfully.
joyfully, yes,
You can't take it back now.
Yeah.
Seconded.
was even the roll call. Okay, I think we're past the resolution 2023 R2, and now is discussion item 8, a proposal Cottonwood Canyon Gondola Survey. Chris, do you want to say anything about this?
Sure thing. So we've been, you all, the council, has been working on a resolution in response to the Little Cottonwood Canyon EIS for the past several months. We considered a version, another version, I don't know what version it was, but we considered, a new version at the November council meeting. The net result of that discussion was sort of in reviewing the minutes and the discussion and the recording was kind of 3 key takeaways, as I read it and as I discussed it with the mayor. And those were, the council wants to maintain, support and maintain positive relationships and a positive tone with UDOT and all its personnel. 1. 2, the council supports the common sense solutions approach, kind of trademark, outlined in the October 2022 letter from Salt Lake County Mayor Wilson, which I did link in the staff report on this topic. It's on the website. It's like in the website backend, so you can find that link and follow it. That's where you can find that document. Third, prior to adopting or formalizing a resolution with a statement opposing or taking any other position on the gondola, the council wants to understand the community's positions on the proposed gondola. So Roger and I, did our own reviews of last month's meeting, had a discussion, and in the council packet, I described the proposed approach to taking input, and it's admittedly prioritizes efficiency. My thinking in creating a simple survey that we would email, perhaps post online, but I think, we're all sensitive to, targeting the right audience here. That we would leave up for a certain amount of time and then take down in time to kind of compile and analyze the results and then report on them to you in January, so that perhaps we could adopt a resolution in January. My thinking has been that we've been working on this for a long time, and but personally, I think you all are empowered to make statements about things like the gondola using your best judgment. But I will never take the position that we shouldn't take more public input when we make decisions. And you all have received some public comments from community members, residents about a different approach we could take. And the gist of that is that we slow down, think about a more deliberate approach, perhaps host an open house with a panel discussion or something like that, where we could hear from different perspectives on the proposal, and just see where that leaves us. So, Roger and I considered this input yesterday in a meeting that we had, and I think we want to hear from the council about what approach you want to take to resolving this or not resolving it. Just continuing the conversation with the community about how folks feel about the gondola, what are they concerned about, do they think it'll work or not? What should the town's response to the gondola or other elements of the EIS be? So with that, I want to open up to you all to tell us which of these approaches you
Is there any ability to partner with ACE and with some additional educational opportunities? I'm particularly interested in the recent lawsuit, particularly looking at the environmental impact. I thought that was a really interesting lawsuit, and I'd love to have that particular team educate us and love to hear from them. And So I don't, and I know that maybe that's not like a town council-y issue, but I do think that, maybe I'm speaking out of
I
turn.
don't think ACE has taken a position or will take a position on this.
But can they offer an educational
They
format?
could maybe help us,
That
like,
would be for them. to answer.
publicize the event.
I think what's,
Maybe,
so
but
what's,
they also are expressly non-political.
what's been
so
really
they
hard
might
a little
chat.
bit
Correct.
is that, you know, we have a lot of components of people that are interested in town, like, and when we've had open houses in the past on things, we get a variety of different people. We get people that are residents, we get people that recreate here, but they live in the valley. And so the hardest part is to try to get the information we need from and how to weigh it, right? And so one thing I do like about a little bit of a survey is you could even have it as part of the survey saying like, are you an employee? Are you a resident? Or are you just a recreation? So at least I can take those information on however someone's their opinion and I can weigh it a little bit. The other problem we had, I remember about past open houses, at least what we've done with the Forest Service and other things, is that not everyone can go to them. Like a lot of our employees are working, or a lot of people are maybe can't come to an evening one. So I don't know. That's kind of why I did like the email survey a little bit better, is because I think it could reach more people. But at the same time, it's hard to get information from everyone here. I mean, like our voting population is only 160 people, but our residents are this many, and we have this many people that work here that are maybe not actual residents, but they work here. And so that's the hardest part, is just trying to weigh all those different groups with what we want to take a stance on. And that's like some of the hardest things about this topic, is that you have places like Salt Lake City and Sandy weighing in on what's happening with our town in a way. And so, like, which I agree. I mean, it's great that everyone has such passion for Little Cottonwood Canyon, but at the same time, like, this is happening to our town and in our town. And so it's a little different, I feel like. And that's one reason I made the comment about trying to still maintain a positive relationship with UDOT. Like, we have such a tight knit group up here. It's hard to, you don't want to make anyone mad about our partners. And so I think it's just trying to find a way where we can get that information, but knowing who the group is that we're getting the information from. So, you know, like I could say like a ski area employee that lives in the valley, but comes up here for 5 days a week, spends so much more time up in Alta than they do maybe with their family in the valley because they work here, you know, maybe has a good opinion, but you know, someone that lives up here is going to have maybe a different type of feeling about it. So that's the hardest part. I know whenever we've done stuff like this, it's always trying to capture those different groups. And that's always been the challenge with our town. Like our town is a small population technically, but we are a big town when it comes to the amount of people that come here and on a daily basis. So it's a tricky.
And I think in this issue, more so than many, we want to try to get the business. I think the businesses really matter in this one. And we need to try to get some response from the business people as to how they feel about it. You know, I think of the ski area as being sort of modestly in favor of it. I understand that the Rustler is in favor of it. You know, it's getting that kind of stuff on the.
I would say that's accurate.
Oh, you wouldn't?
I would not.
Oh, well, it's changed. You know, and I think we need to try to come up with a mechanism that's going to capture what the businesses think as well. I think it's important. It's not just a voting, it's not just about the resident voters.
I mean, last Friday, when our like ski area employees were stuck in traffic for 3 hours and people didn't get home till 9, I had like 5 people be like, hey, I don't support the gondola, but when I was in traffic for 3 hours, I would have been happy to write it down. You know, so it's really tricky. Like, it's really hard to get this information and try to also weigh it. Like, you know.
And I think the survey, I know that this was just like a first blush at it, but I think the one part of the survey that I think I'd like to see fleshed out would be which of the proposed alternatives attracts you, you know, do nothing, let them build a gondola, do the common sense approach. Are you familiar with the common sense approach? Does that appeal to you? To try to put some boundary on it, so it's just not so like completely wide open.
Well, it did, the first version that I wrote was about the EIS and how well do you understand it? Do you understand the proposed alternatives, the range of alternatives, the ones that weren't selected? But then I went back to the outcome of a council meeting, and the outcome of a council meeting was those 3 things, and the third thing was that we don't know what the community thinks about the gondola. So I'm open to that approach. I'm also like, anytime you go out and take public input, you have to project or predict what like expectations you're gonna create and then what you're gonna do with that input. And so I'm leery of taking a bunch of input that we can't
Don't know what to do with. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, like in my mind, the bus service and the tolling and the phase one stuff is much more likely to ever come to pass than the gondola. So
And I think there's good support for that within both the town and within the council. I think we're all sort of generally in favor of phase one at least, and most of us in favor of phase two.
I think for me, it's like, if we're gonna take, I'm not in favor of having a resolution that's like super strongly, I mean, the way that last draft that we talked about in November was, I felt that it was just came across really harsh. And if we want to go in that direction, then I feel like I need help from our citizens. If we're gonna take a direction more that is a tone in our resolution, like we support phase one, we support buses, we do this, but until all of these things are met and they're studied really well, then maybe we can consider the gondola. If it's written a certain way, then yeah, I don't know if I need to talk to, get citizen input. It's more that if we're gonna take this really harsh stance, I need to have that backing because I'm wary of taking like a really harsh stance on something with our partners. But if that's not the type of tone we want to do, then I don't know if maybe we don't need this survey done.
It does seem to me too that this all is more acute, given that we have the Olympics. To me, that seems like suddenly the gas is turned on with possible federal funding. And so I think the idea that we can really kind of sit back and watch phase one and two possibly unfold is, I think, a foolish idea as a community. So
yeah,
the more information we have from citizens and however we want to winnow the data, I would recommend that. But the Olympic bid and our getting it in 2034 is a very different landscape than we had when we discussed this a month ago.
The lawsuits are also going to be, I mean, it's going to slow down this. Phase one isn't going to happen the problem, that's the only thing about these lawsuits is they've tied up all of the EIS in a way. And so it's not like we're going to see phase one implemented next year. Like these lawsuits are going to take time to go through the process.
I think as far as we know, I've heard different takes on that.
Maybe they will start it. I don't know.
I think it's a serious legal question, and given the volume of paperwork that's been filed, I think it'll take some serious legal bills to, determine whether they can buy buses in January. I know they've publicly said, plain and simple, we can't say it's moving ahead at this point, but so we had some strong input from the community.
Can I say something?
Yes, of course. Sorry.
I don't think we're ready to have a survey. We got actually a lot of data has been dumped in the last couple of weeks, which these lawsuits are like 80 or 90 pages.
They're awesome.
They're indigestible, shall I say, hard to digest. Things are not moving rapidly, but we need to jump in and say, stop or go. And while it is the case that our community is impacted, so are others. I mean, Sandy is quite concerned about a 2,500 car parking structure near the Kai and the associated traffic problems that brings. So it's the other players are not what's the right term? Just kibitzing from the sidelines.
No, and I don't mean that way. It's more that like we just our resources at our town is so small, and our resources, we
are so limited.
We rely on our partners to do a lot of the functions that maybe Sandy City or Salt Lake City do for their town. And so part of me is like, example would be our town plow out, the north side plowing is done by UDOT, so part of me is just kind of like, we have just a much more intricate relationship with these partners than these other cities do. And even though Sandy and they will be impacted, and I'm not saying that that's not the case, it's just that we just have to, I feel like, be very careful with what we say in our resolution is all, just because we are so tight knit with a lot of these groups.
We're dependent on them for our livelihood.
Yeah,
Well, and none of
Existence.
us is prohibited from writing a letter to the editor or something. I mean, if somebody's dying to express their thoughts, they
Yeah,
can
citizen.
express them as an individual. For the town to take a little more of a wait and see attitude, see what alternatives develop, when it gets down to one or two or three things that are sort of the basic choice, then maybe step up and express ourselves. But at this point, it's sort of, it's a pot of soup that's still boiling, and there's no, it's just like an infinite array of possibilities still. And I think most of us like the Jenny Wilson approach, but that's not even really getting to be the center of discussion with the folks down valley yet. You know what I mean? So I don't. For us to sit back and watch the situation closely, continue to discuss it, I think could be an more opportune time for us to voice a collective opinion.
and maybe we wait, we don't have to just sit on this for 6 months, but maybe next month we just kind of see what happens with, like you said, all this data has just kind of trickled down in the last couple of weeks.
Not trickled.
Did not trickle, came out,
Rained down.
but maybe I don't want to sit and wait on this forever, but at the same time, we just kind of just let it keep for a little while.
There's not much to really embrace right now. I mean, I don't know what we would embrace. Lots of things we could hate. We could write a negative email, but really it'd be better to wait for something to emerge that we can embrace and embrace it positively. I think would be a better course of action.
I mean, I think one thing we could probably would be non-controversial to embrace would be the enhanced bus service straight away. And because, I mean, we feel that we've really gotten shortchanged on the curtailing of considerable bus service. And if we even get back to where we were 2 or 3 years ago, it would be, better than where we are now.
I thought what Mike shared was really fascinating. I mean, I am shocked at that, and I find it fascinating that that's not sort of more publicly discussed and is not in sort of more newspapers or not in sort of more like information. Like we all are like, why is the traffic so bad? Why is the traffic so bad? Bam, 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 and it's like, oh, maybe it got bad because those people aren't on the bus because there's not those buses. And it's fascinating that that's not even a topic. We're talking about enhanced bus service. How about just even going back to
What
we had?
unenhanced bus service.
Yeah, what we had 20 years ago, bus service we had 20 years ago would be an improvement over today.
Sure
Yeah,
would.
it's fascinating. It's fascinating that that's not widely publicized.
Yeah,
And
Mike,
that-
maybe you should get on that.
And maybe that might be the thrust of a resolution.
Or a comment from the town of Alta has noticed, if we were interested in sort of, measuring through with Roger's thing, it's not really necessarily that political statement anti-gondola, but perhaps it's a positive statement, as John is suggesting, that could we please recommend.
Yeah, restoring.
Restoring our bus service.
Can I ask Mike a question, or is he not allowed to speak?
Oh, he's allowed to speak, but he has to come to, so he can be
He
heard
does
on
have
the.
to- sorry. Yes, they come up to the
My question, sir, is do you know if Big Cotton Canyon experienced the same significant decline in bus availability and ridership as we have?
No, they did not have as much. So we got cut more because the system got cut 30% system-wide to do the initial cut. And then on top of that, they took away Route 93 from Old Cottonwood Canyon. So we went from a 30% cut to a 75% cut with, 2 years later when they made the change. But the rest of the system was about 30% across the board. So they got cut, but not to the same degree that we did. In fact, what's happened is over time, actually the number of buses prior COVID had went up for Big Cottonwood Canyon and was less for Little Cottonwood Canyon. There'd been this little shift through time that had occurred. So it become a little bit more. Years ago, 60% of buses came to Little Cottonwood Canyon. And it had moved more to the 50-50 deal prior to COVID, even though the ridership was still more of this canyon than that canyon.
Fascinating.
I'm just surprised that you don't hear more anecdotal stories of people who no longer have an Alta pass because they can't get a bus. I hear that so often and just casual conversations with people that I meet widely socially. And maybe it's only a sample size of one, but I hear it frequently. Or they go to the, you know, old Sandy station, try and pick it up from the source. And they can't get on because it's full even there.
Right.
And it just really changed a lot of people's choices about where they ski. And I'm,
Let's push more people to use cars or to.
right.
To ski somewhere else. Yeah.
COVID, I mean, it's impacted us
Mhm,
and
mhm.
so,
Change
I mean,
habits.
there's still people with this kind, I mean, right now, there's a little bit of, I mean, I don't know how big it is, a resurgence of a new COVID variant. But even right now, we have some people that are like, no, I don't wanna ride in my car with somebody, I'm gonna try to stay healthy, you know, I mean, it's just kind of.
The other thing that COVID did, it made us more aware, even of the flu.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people now choose to still wear masks, not because of COVID, because of it's flu season. You know, and they don't want to interact on the bus very close. So that's changed our society a little bit. But I still think there's room for the buses. Even though buses sometimes can be a problem when the road gets slack, but. Yeah. That answers your
Yes,
question.
that does answer my question. I just think if we wanted to get behind something that's perhaps some data that's a positive comment, as John was suggesting, and maybe not as politically alienating, because it's actually what you suggested as well, Sharon. So maybe that's the letter we want to propose.
Well, why don't we draft something like that up for the next round?
Can we summarize what that would be again? So review this discussion and summarize the things that we do support. We're doing the resolution. I guess my question is, are we not looking to, you know, engage in more significant public feedback process, like to hold an open house at this point? Is that interesting to you all? I think we have the capacity to do it now that we have a fourth person in the office. Probably wouldn't be until more like February at this point, I think, with everything we have, you know, on the horizon and the holidays and all that. We can certainly draft a new resolution. That's easy. You know, facilitating additional public meetings and, you know, convening presenters and finding facilities is a little less so. But I'm happy to do one, the other, or both.
I was gonna say at this time, I don't feel like I need it if we're not drafting like a very aggressive letter. I feel like if we're just gonna try to embrace something that's simple, like the bus service for right now, I think it's fine. We can talk about it a little bit more maybe after the holidays and kind of see where you got. I feel like I just need to see where they're moving forward before we can even do anything. Like you said, they don't even know if they can move forward with phase one yet, and so I kind of. I'm not sure.
Well, one constructive letter
You know?
could be the idea that, yeah, maybe just stay away from sort of the big long run question of gondola and just focus on the things that we think, you know, a short list of things that we think would be beneficial to embrace now to see them getting put into effect now. And, you know, more busing being at the top of that list. And I think the other thing that would really be helpful and to mention would be the evaluation period aspect of the Jenny Wilson letter. I mean, I think we would all sleep. You know, it's funny, I went back and watched those town council meetings from December or from June and July, and it sure seems like we thought it was going to be included. The evaluation period was going to be included. But in the end, it wasn't. It was kind of like a smoke and mirrors. They had some public announcements. They had, you know, recognized the CWC having it. They said, oh yeah, and then we know the Jenny Wilson thing, it has an evaluation period. So everybody thought, you know, it was kind of a feel-good moment, but then it wasn't in the actual documentation. And so, you know, I think to identify that we think that's a great, that we think that that's an important step and should be included in the process. I can get my arms around that, get my arms around, we think it's important to get back to the prior level of bus service.
Maybe that's something Alta Lift Company would partner with us in and embrace that statement as well. There's no harm in them embrace, I mean, maybe.
Well, I
Like
think
a
they've
joint-
been more vocal than we have about the need to restore the bus service to its prior levels. And
Yeah.
so, we appreciate that.
I think we've had enough discussion on this topic, which is,
Chris, do you feel good now that you can move forward?
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
um,
now the other topic that we started earlier.
which was discussion of possible action to adopt a 2024 capital projects plan. We might split this into what we do in the capital projects plan for 2024. I think we have a fairly good handle on. What we don't have is for a capital projects plan post 2024. Did that summarize your situation?
I think 2024 has been a splendid year for the capital improvement fund. They've accomplished many great projects. I struggle with, I don't love this exhibit. If you guys studied this one, I think the title isn't right. I mean, it says it's the 24 capital projects plan. I know we keep going back and forth on whether this should also include other projects. To me, if it's a capital project, it should be on this list. The shuttle isn't a capital project.
You're referring to the document page that's titled, just, I'm saying this for the record, December 7th, 2023, Town of Alta Project Summary Update.
Right, but up in the corner, it
Yeah.
says
Yeah,
capital
because it's
projects
part of this
plan.
whole.
Yeah. Regardless, I think the shuttle doesn't really belong on here because we're not getting, this leads me to believe we're buying a shuttle. Is what I would say this leads me to believe. Which I think would be a bold move. If you go to back into the document though itself, this is the 24 capital projects plan, and there's the one for the water fund, looks like this, has a couple, 3 letters or 3 projects on. I think all of these items in red are absolutely necessary, and we should accept those changes or those additions to the capital plan, because I think that's what's needed to get for Chris to be able to forge a meaningful out-year plan. I get what he said about, hey, we're just not ready to put numbers on these out years. In the that page is the one under it says capital projects fund plan. That would be this one.
Page 4.
This is the one that bothers me because there's no spending after this year. And I just really struggle with that. With the fund growing, it's gonna be $3 million+ this year. I think I get it that this has been a transition, but it's 6 months. Yeah, we need to do these studies, we need to do them now. I do think there are some elements just to keep the ball rolling. Some of these things don't have anything to do with the water system update and the sewer, and I think we should try to put them into 2025 and put a number on them so that the plan is in fact an ongoing spending plan.
Wasn't your intention to have a retreat though with the council to begin to
Yes.
actually wrap our arms? with
Yes,
the constituency of the council?
But I think we're gonna be making the progress that we can make, that John is asking for, absent the retreat.
Right.
Retreat is a slightly different purpose, although by the end of it, I hope to affirm that, infrastructure master planning, facilities master planning, extending our planning horizons are a priority for the town. I can't imagine that will be controversial, but there are a number of other things to discuss in the retreat. But still, absent that retreat, when we adopt this plan, we will be starting to populate future year expense plans, I hope.
And I know it's been like I said, I've seen it. This process has changed with the capital. This is a different format that we've used in the past. And and like you said, it's blank right now because we haven't started talking about it. And I think I've said this before, but we have a planning commission, and I know, and I feel like I would hope that at any point, if you also want to use them to help you with this future planning. Like you said, we have buildings that we don't know which building to prioritize, and we don't know this. I mean, I feel like we need to start helping get this long-term plan into place, whether that's using the planning commission, whether that's us. But again, it's not something that we've had before necessarily. We've always kind of had a shorter outlook. And I like that we're starting to think farther out. And so I just think that, you know, with you and your new position, and figure out how you want this to look and what you need resource-wise from us, from the planning commission, so that you can get to the point that John has requested, right? You're, like you said, we're not there yet, but we can start working on it.
And sorry, John, I have to say, Jen and I and a few others of us have spent a really unfortunate amount of time taking input on how to present this information. The whiplash that we have incurred over the past 12 months about what's the priority, what's the right way to present this is it's really unfortunate. And so
too many chiefs and not enough Indians.
Yeah, so I hope that we can find a way to present this that satisfies the council, and leave it there so that we can redevote that bandwidth to finding stuff to spend money on, because there's plenty of it out there.
Yeah.
We're starting to have plenty of money. We're not starting to have plenty of money. We're starting to have money that we need to program. Our needs almost certainly exceed our fund balances, our present fund balances. So they absolutely do, by orders of magnitude. So we've got a lot of work to do, and I hope we can find the right starting point.
And I think I've said this many times, but I feel as my role as a town council member is here to make it so you guys can function, our town can function, and you guys can help get what you need. I mean, I love it that we have this format and everything, and I get that to help the council envision it and see it, but at the same time, I want a document that you guys are going to be able to read and use. It's going to facilitate you guys. Like I don't want, you know, the fact that you guys have spent so much time trying to work on this document just so the town council can have this vision. And that's upsetting to me, because I feel like we should be helping you do what you guys need to do. And like, I want you as a town manager and your new person and Jen to have the documents you need to make the town function, and that we are doing, you can ask us a question that we meet once a month and you can get what you need from us. And so I'm sorry that if there's been too many cooks in the kitchen. I'm sorry. I don't know if this is coming from Craig. I don't know if it came from the budget committee. I don't know where it came from, but I just want documents that you guys can work with, because we have changed the way that the town is running by creating this town manager position, and we need to do whatever it is. And I've said this at many budget committee meetings, that the staff comes with what you guys need, and I, as a budget committee member, am trying to make it work for you. You know, what does the marshal need? So I'm sorry if you guys have spent so much time on this, and you aren't getting
Well, Chris has asked at every meeting.
Yeah.
So for the money to do a facilities study, and that's not in here. There's a study for the water plan. There's a study for the sewer, but I'm not seeing the money to do an actual building facility study. And I think there's one that I think we could give them, and we'd be starting down the path that you described. But I also think there's some of them that don't need a facilities study, and that could just go in 2025, and then I could shut up about it, because it'd be something of an ongoing plan for next year, at least something on the horizon. And I think of the ones really like the ones at the bottom, the trailhead, public bathroom study.
Let's do it.
The CENTCOM phase 2 from the marshal's office, that doesn't need a big
Those
study.
are two projects that have a
lot of work.
raft of complications.
Yeah.
Neither of those are shovel ready. They're
Oh, no.
so distant. They're so far from shovel ready, right? Mike, you care to speak to the CENTCOM? I mean, there's no project. There's no project. And there's no restroom project, because there's nowhere to put it.
Yeah.
Like there's simply nowhere to put it. And it's an interagency, like it's a football season of football games between several agencies to figure that out. So
putting it doesn't mean that you have it shovel ready. Putting it means that you want to work on this, and are we going to be positively disposed to spending the money? So that's where I think that those projects that aren't gonna be based on, they're not tied to the water system study or the facility study per se. You know, and they may be hard to execute in 2025, but at least it would be saying, hey, we're gonna try to work on this over the next year and a half. I mean, 24, this is a great list that we did in 24, but it's essentially complete, and we're now halfway through the budget year. So the second half of the budget year,
That's the spirit in which the council, in which we asked, in which we, you know, put projects on the plan in the past.
yeah,
And then we got in this, we've had a lot of conversations internally and with the council about when do we propose a project? Is it when we have a scope, or is it when we have proposals? What does it take? Or do we simply say, I want to do a trailhead restroom? And that's not what you're saying. But that is closer to what we used to do than.
That's
like,
kinda how it's-
getting
oh,
some
no,
of the
I'm
engineering.
saying, I think that some of these are clearly in the, hey, I wanna do these, and then they belong, if they get on here, then you're open to working on them and spending money, and we've had a chance to say, yeah, that sounds good, now, so hopefully you can figure out where the bathroom goes, and so I get that there's a balance there. So.
Okay.
I definitely don't think it should stay off the plan until you've got it fully dialed, because what if you're working on something that we're not gonna support? So that doesn't really make sense. It makes sense to something that you reasonably think can be accomplished and that you think is a decent project. I think the Tom Moore stabilization, $25,000. It's not dialed, that project, but it's something we wanna do. We've talked about doing it for a couple of years, so that seems like an ideal candidate for 25, which as of the moment seems like a late year.
So I think what you're saying is just take those those projects that are future
Schedule.
projects and put some dates on it, start working towards
If
it.
it's at least reasonable to think about, these ones at the bottom, you know, like the community center, probably I would leave that out in space because there's no real path to the community center at this time. And a lot of other cards are gonna have to turn over, but 3 or 4 of these things I think could have made it into the 25 year.
That's
And
fair, yeah.
it would just give us a sense that it's an ongoing process rather than a stop and start. We're gonna do this list, and then when it's all buttoned up, we're gonna then start to think about what the next list should look like, and it'd be better if it was a little more of a continuous flow.
Well, and maybe now, you know, if you I mean, you've been working on capital projects for many years. This isn't something new I mean, it's not like it's something new that you just took over as being town manager, but I'm saying that maybe now that you have this, you can say realistically, the Tom Moore toilets, is that 2 years out or 3 years out? Is this, and then you can just earmark it for those years. And recommend what you would envision to the town council, like as a staff, you know, what can you guys handle? Is a Tom Moore toilet planning process gonna be all we can handle in one fiscal year, or is there gonna be other things? A feasibility study on the buildings. I think it's just like envisioning what you guys are gonna have time for and figuring out, and it may not happen, like we might earmark something for 2026 and then some other thing happens that we have to spend the money on. But I mean, I think it's just like a long-term plan of saying, these are trailhead bathrooms, you know, are they 4 years out from now? What would you guys like to see? And, but what's also realistic for the staff to handle, like. You know.
Did you have additional comments? You raised your hand.
Chris kind of covered them.
Okay.
We're getting to what I think, yeah.
I think we've beaten this horse pretty much to death today, which is good, and I'm sure that we've got everyone's attention, so could I make a move that we go ahead and approve this plan, so that we can move on and talk about the CapEx plan?
Before we do that, I do want to ask, because we were talking about, I'd like some feedback, because as Chris was saying about the whiplash, you know, we show documents in meetings and everybody loves them, and then we show them in the next meeting and we get bad feedback. So I just, for consistency purposes, I think everyone is very supportive, and the documents that in here that I think are the most helpful are the capital fund project plan, the water fund, and the sewer fund. Those 3, right? They each have like their own budgets. Those things, it seems like everybody is very supportive of those. The general fund plan and then the summary page I've at least heard from John that he's not a fan of them and just feels like it's confusing. How does the rest of the council feel on the summary page? And it's just highlighting the current year and where we're at with projects. Is that something you want to see
It's
moving
the
forward?
first page of the capital
or
projects.
not?
That's-
I like a summary page. I mean, Piper used to do, or even Kate a long time ago used to do these bulleted points lists. I mean, this is like.
It's
just
not
a
anymore.
different-
I have it,
For
I'm
sure.
coding it so that it's
Yeah.
like,
Now, are
I
you
mean-
talking about it's this page or this page?
no, we're talking
You're
about that
asking
page in
about-
your right hand.
Yeah,
I like a summary page because I need to know the highlights of what we're, especially for an amendment, like this is what we're working on right now, is we're amending.
And I
The
appreciated the
2024?
color coding.
I as well. So I actually like that. I like knowing what we're amending for 2024.
I like this page too. I wish there were subtotals, but I can live without subtotals because it's only like 6 items. But,
I could do
but the
that.
one thing that's sort of gotten a little blurry, and I think we should put a nail in it, is the idea that this is also gonna be a projects list for any projects that we're doing. This should be a capital projects list. And I think that's where, like when the shuttle appears here, I say, well, the shuttle's not a capital project. Unless there's a news flash and we're buying a shuttle, it doesn't belong on here. And so to me, and I know that there was some desire to gather sort of everything we're gonna do this summer into a long list. And I said, that doesn't work really well for us because we need to separate capital projects from projects that are being funded through the normal general fund process. I think anything that's funded through the normal general fund that we don't anticipate capitalizing. So if there was ever something in there that was so big that we would capitalize it on the balance sheet, it's a capital project, let's put it on the game, but that's almost nothing. And so basically stuff that's done through the expense mechanism, I don't think that should be part of this analysis.
There was a 2-month period of time, like in the second quarter of 2023, where we were talking about projects. Yeah, they were all projects, and then we had projects, under different funds, and so.
It should be capital projects.
Yeah.
So removing the general fund projects sheet from this, I'm hearing that there's, that would be okay?
Yeah, and I think you just gotta, I mean, I'm fine with summarizing, but it's like you just need a summary for a general fund changes that we're amending or project. I think that's what.
Yeah, I think she's talking about this one, and so to me, none of these are.
Page 3,
None
yeah,
of,
it's the one, it's
none of
the
these are
one-
capital projects.
Yeah,
This
it's
is,
the one
these
that
are all
says town
projects that need to be
shuttle
done,
and-
but they're not capital projects.
So we can get rid of that whole sheet.
I think we
moving
should.
forward. There's no just general fund project.
If it's, yeah, I think it's just separating
I
that.
think that's been very
Yeah.
confusing on like what makes it onto this or
Yeah.
not, and
Right,
would
it was trying to solve too many riddles and be like a management, time management, allocation of, so counting all these things that aren't capital projects.
Yeah.
Those should be discussed in the normal discussion of the revenue and expenses of the town. And when we talk about the town general fund, if there's some big number there that actually represents a project, like a new website, I think that should be discussed when we're discussing the general fund budget.
Okay, I think we've had, speaking of discussion, considerable discussion on items 9 and 10, the possible action to adopt an updated 2024 capital projects plan and to adopt a resolution for the December amended 2024 budgets. Would anyone object to a vote on adopting the resolution?
Do we want to talk about your changes to
Well,
the general fund?
sorry, so we are done with,
9. Let's
Nine.
vote on
And-
9.
okay,
Let's
Which is the
vote on
capital.
that.
let's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just the
it's done
capital part of
separate,
it.
sorry.
Okay,
I move that we,
So,
do you need a roll?
well, my question is do you actually want to adopt this as it is, or do you want me to come back to you and amend it to make those changes that we just talked about?
Sure, I would say the
I mean,
latter.
it's not doing it at the same time, but
No, and
But
I'd
that's-
say the
but
one
I
other
think that's
change we
fine,
need
as long as we
is,
pass the
can we
budget.
have consensus that we need to do a facility study plan?
Oh, absolutely.
So I think that if you're gonna change it, and we're gonna wait till next meeting to adopt it, can we add some money for just a general facilities plan?
Is this more of a budget? This might be more of a 2025
It's a
budget
20, yeah,
discussion,
it's a-
not a 20, because since it's a 2024.
Well,
amendment.
you know, we get back to this conversation about, when does it get funded? But, you know, green lighting versus approval. So if the council wants to put, I mean, I can't really think about like the balance sheet implications of this or, you know, fund transfers, let Jen. try to
If
think
it's a
about that.
future year
If it's-
project, I don't, to me, anything that's like on a future year budget, it's like, it's working. It's like, this is our intent and this is the direction we're moving, but it's not like, it's gonna evolve and change in future plan adoptions. It's gonna get more specific as time goes. So it's to give some intent. The current year budget
Right, and
is
empower you
fixed
to pursue
because
it.
we're in that and we're spending it. But future years, we're gonna continue to massage those numbers and get them better over time. And it's to give an indication, but it's not to lock you, if that makes sense. That's how I see
Right.
it.
It's like our way of nodding our head and saying, yeah, we think that makes sense to pursue.
And as it gets closer, you've gotta be.
Let us know how it goes, and then they can dial in that number as they get closer.
Well, and the intent of, right, I mean, when Harris kind of did this December amendment is to kind of, so we're not amending everything back, you know, in May and June that happened for the whole year before. So I mean, we can obviously, whatever you guys decide to do, if we want to do a facility study, we don't need to talk about it, right? Just these action items right now. We can amend this later on, again, the budget.
Fair enough.
But I'm just saying that right now, we're just trying to get through the capital projects, you know, 2024. So if you want us to hold off on a vote to make those changes, you can, but I mean, we don't.
Well,
we're
the
not
twenty
set to-
twenty-four stuff to be,
Yeah.
so the way this
Yeah.
stuff works is the 2024 stuff that's on there in red is in the actual FY
Yes.
24 budget. So you're
Yes.
gonna be approving that, I believe, here in a minute.
Correct, yeah,
So
so that's
you're
what,
not,
So
so
we
by
might
not
as well
approving
approve
this,
this
you're.
document.
yes, and so that's kind of
Right,
what,
and if it's not, if we don't also, so if we're gonna add a project to the 2024 projects plan, or capital projects plan. In order for us to spend the money in 24, it also has to be in the budget.
yes.
So. Right, I mean,
But we can
Well,
also
we-
amend the
we're-
budget when, we don't,
You're adding 4 things, and we're embracing that,
Yeah.
and so we're gonna approve this plan, and now that money is in the budgets, it's in the general fund budget, our town budget.
yeah, but the facilities plan is not, so unless we amend the budget as well. Like, we can put that on for fiscal year 25, unless it's in the budget.
Or the next time we review this.
Yeah.
You know, the next time you send us one, maybe the only red thing at the bottom, because these red things will have become black things. The only red thing at the bottom will be that, yeah, let's actually do a facilities planning. So that we can start to address some of the bigger issues like, should we be repairing this building? Should we be retaining the rock behind this building? Stuff like that.
Okay, I think, I had said this 10 minutes ago, that we've had enough discussion on adopting a 24 capital projects plan. And the possible adopting a resolution for the December amendment. What do you think?
they're two separate.
Should we have discussion
They're
of
two separate
that?
things.
They're
Yeah,
separate-
they
they're
just-
separate things, yes,
Do one and
okay.
then the other.
Yes.
Okay. I move that we adopt an updated 2024 capital projects plan as amended by Jen.
And discussed.
Yes, great. So I'm going to remove the general fund projects page and I am going to summarize better by fund the summary page for you, and that will be your official version.
Okay.
Second,
love it.
second.
Third.
Okay. Anybody opposed?
You roll call.
I
don't think you do.
Do it.
don't think I do because it's not a resolution. I mean, it does
All
have
right.
budgetary implications, but it's.
She looks up at Cameron, who's frozen on the screen.
Don't worry about
Don't worry about it, okay.
There it is.
Capital
He's
projects
good with
plan, Cameron, it's not a resolution, but it does have financial implications. Should I do a roll call?
No, I think it's fine because it's fine the way it is.
Okay, item 10 was to discuss.
Do we have a vote?
Oh, do we have a
We had a
vote?
first and a second. I have that.
Okay,
All right.
and we need to
All in
vote.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Voice vote. Okay, discussion possible action resolution 2023-R-23 to adopt the December amendment FY 24 budgets.
Did you want a summary?
Sure.
Okay.
Summaries are the best.
Okay, the highlights in the general fund are mainly, interest calculations. I way lowballed it on a bunch of my, projections, so that's mostly what that is. We did put a little bit more money in there for, John Goldner's contract, but other than that, super minor modifications. On the capital project, fund budget, because of the change in the general fund, the transfer from the general fund to the capital projects fund increased by 44,000, I believe. And so that is reflected in that budget as well as the general fund budget. In the water budget, we did have a couple new projects, and including, will you, actually, no, we can just verbalize this. In my, overview page of the budget, staff would like to ask on the water fund budget, it's pages 11 and 12 of the budget, that you'll have to have a corresponding revenue and expense. It's the amount of $10,000 for the Grizzly Gulch system communication upgrade. And so we would go from, in the revenue account, the use of the water reserve PTAF balance, we would go from 535 to 545, and then we would have a corresponding expense in the capital outlay line item, which is 514740, from 535 to 545. So those equal each other out. So I'm asking that you guys make that edit.
So moved.
And then in the sewer fund, the only big change there is to fund a sewer study. That is my summary.
Okay,
I love that summary.
any other discussion? So moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
So this is a roll call vote.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, because it's a budget. Let me start with Councilmember Davis. Aye. Mayor Burke.
Aye.
Mayor Morgan. Or excuse me, Councilmember Morgan. Future pro temp. Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
Councilmember Ansel.
Yes.
Councilmember Byrne.
Yes.
Thank you.
That gets us.
Motion passes.
All right.
Just that cookie.
Did anybody want to talk more about the budgets, the 24 budget? That was it.
That was it, unless you want to bring anything.
That was it.
No, I was just gonna say, I went
We voted on it.
carefully through every line of the changes and read all the little footnotes, and they all look in order to me, and
Thank you.
I think they're neat and tidy and ready to go.
On to the water fund.
Discussion and possible resolution regarding the debt repayment for the water fund to the general fund. Here is where John Goldner's historical perspective, I think, might be valuable. So if we could bring John Goldner up to talk about this.
John, you're
I think I'm
on.
here.
Yeah, you
You're
are.
right
We're just
there.
sharing a screen and, but
Okay, well, it's been quite a while, so my historical perspective is not going to be that great. But initially, the problem was when the town annexed the Blackjack area, which is Blackjack Village subdivision, Blackjack condos, and all of Sugar Plum. That is our overlapping service area number 3 area. When we annexed that area due to a lawsuit related to the Sugar Plum development, everybody in that area voted to stay with the service area. And it happened a little bit after the annexation. And I can remember, and as someone said earlier, I wasn't privy to the books at the time as well as much as Kate and Bill. But we were billing people, there weren't that many people there at the time, but we were billing people for sewer and water, and they elected to stay in the service area. So Kate had to do some kind of a refund to everybody there. And then as time went on, everybody in that overlapping district in which John Byrne is and Carolyn does water from that area, but not, no sewer, but not water. Everybody just paid straight to the service area. So this came up a number of times, and I could never figure out, no one could ever figure out exactly what the debt was. I mean, there might be some things that the town did that came out of the general fund, which is bad if it's talking, again, it's the overlapping service area, which I think is probably the main point. And you can disagree with me that later, but I think that's one of the biggest issues. Anything we spend from the general fund would make people in the overlapping service area crazy. Anything we spend from the general fund for people within the original town could be said to help everybody, but not people in the overlapping in the service area district. So,
John, can I ask you what year this was?
oh
Roughly?
geez, 82.
Right, thank you.
You were probably
and
in junior
that's-
high. No, grade school.
Not even, probably.
Sorry. I mean, it was weird. So I'm just rambling.
No, I think that's very helpful, and I'm glad you put the date on it. That helps me here in a minute.
It was
And-
it was never an intentional loan. Things were a little different, 40 years ago. I mean, Bill used to say it's all the same pocket. I mean, we have all these different funds, but we have money, and he said it all comes from the same checkbook or the same pocket. So I don't think it was ever an intentional loan. I don't think it was ever an intentional, let's bill the people in the service area to pay for a new fire hydrant in Grizzly Gulch or across from Hellgate or who knows what. But when this came up after Kate left, it started to get more serious. And I asked Alana, one of our longtime accountants, I said, okay, we need to figure out exactly where this money, I mean, how this debt came to pass, when it started, and how much it is. She goes, this is what she said. She said, well, I was in junior high when this happened, and they didn't even have computers. So, I don't have the greatest history, but in my mind, I think, I remember John Byrne had a system where we could identify a debt. We could establish money paid from the general fund to the water system, which on one hand could be seen to benefit everybody in town, not counting the service area boundary, but not the people in the service area. So John came up with a formula to reimburse people within the service area. And then maybe we could forgive the debt for the people within the town because it could be seen to be generally benefiting everybody. So I think that might be enough rambling to get people started asking questions. We could never figure out when it started, how much it was, no matter who our accountants were. We've had new accountants for the last couple of years, but we couldn't put a pin on the exact amount or when.
John, I remember, I mean, it wasn't until Harris brought this to the council that we started officially calling it a loan. I think
Bingo.
Before it was just that's kind of, I remember it was just something that was there, but it wasn't something that was recognized until Harris started kind of referring to it, and he felt that it was fair, I mean, at the time, to call it a loan and pay it back. But before that, it just kind of was out there. It wasn't officially called a loan until we started talking about it.
As a due to, due from.
Yes.
I really believe that's sorry.
No, and so that's just how I remember it wasn't, we started talking about loan until we started having that discussion with Harris. I mean, early 6 years ago.
And you're right.
7 years ago,
The consensus that we got from Piper though, and I think also underlay the period that Elise was just discussing, is that these were due to and due froms that weren't cleared at the end of the year. And that's what Jen believes as well. And so the reason you can't find some project back there is because there was no specific thing. There wasn't a specific project. It was buying the media for the filtering, and then, you know, the general fund would buy it and they need to get a reimbursement, and that created a due to, and that due to's, we now are much more disciplined about clearing out our due tos and due froms every quarter. And this is why, because you end up with this sort of bowl of spaghetti. And it seems to me pretty clear that it is an accumulation of due tos and due froms. I think that's what Jen believes. It's what Piper believed. And we need to continue to use due tos and due froms to operate the town. We don't want to, where I get worried is if we just forgive this money, then we're undermining the use of due tos and due froms in our ordinary conduct of business. You can't, the reason it was never called a loan is because it was never meant to be a loan. It was something that should have been cleared out at the end of the financial year at the latest, and done so on an ongoing basis. So I think it's important to repay the loan, as we talked last week. I think that it's really that 20% of the people would be disadvantaged, because they're already paying for CapEx. The people that are over in Salt Lake number 3, they're already paying CapEx, and their charges, their water charges are different and are paid to Salt Lake number 3 directly. You know, we figured out a formula for reimbursing everybody instead. I think that that's a much more cumbersome approach. You know, we talked about trying to give the credit to get the number 3 people to administer the credit to the people that are in number 3. That just, I think a simple approach is just to make this annual payment of $30,000 and retire the debt. My one addition to this resolution was the idea of we should say that we'll repay a minimum. Oh, I see, you made the change. Thank you. So it now says a minimum of $30,000 per year. And then the other macro issue is if you blow this off and you don't pay, we're just going to say, well, screw it, we're not going to pay the money back and force us to forgive it. What happens the next time the water system needs a loan? What happens the next? Is the town going to be there to lend the money, or is there going to be a big controversy? Because you know there are going to be people out there. Harris probably be one of them. I'd probably be standing next to him, saying, "Hey, the last time we lent you money, you never paid it back, and so you reneged." And so there's a credibility issue here, and I think there's nothing wrong with the general fund being a lender of last resort for the enterprise funds, but we want to maintain that, and we want the loans given to be repaid. And I think that's probably the best reason to go ahead and adopt the ordinance as written.
Right, and those are really good points. And the only thing I would say, John, is that it's a political decision, and I think it was a political decision 40 years ago. It's like, oh, geez, we don't have any money for this project or that project, so they just general fund money was used. And you're right, it can't continue like that. And now the water fund is solvent. Oh, the other reason that general fund money was used, because way back when, they never costed out the water system for the actual costs. So it's like, I mean, because it would be incredibly high. Because we have such a small number of people, and it was such a kind of an expensive system. So they just kind of, they being the council and the mayor at the time, reverted back to using the general fund. Related to doing that in the future, I mean, they never did this as an intentional, okay, let's look at the code section that talks about establishing the rate, and you got to repay within 10 years and all the things that you've got to do. The town never did that. They never did an official loan. If you really wanted to do that in the future, don't be disturbed. You could do that. And you could say, okay, we're going to really do an official loan to the water system to do this gigantic project. And we're going to enter into these contract pieces.
Right, not just let it be an accumulation of due to and due from balances that didn't get straightened out cleared by the end of the year. And so we all recognize, and I know Jen is all over clearing out the due to and due froms of all our accounts now. But I agree with you, John. I think that if we, in the future, we want, say there was some big water fund issue, bigger than the water fund could take, the water fund itself is not going to be able to be a borrower. So, in a situation like that, we want the water fund to be able to come to the general fund, say, hey, we need to borrow $1 million for 10 years. And I think now we know that we need to make a loan and we need to write the note and there need to be terms. So this is sort of cleaning up old accounting housekeeping. There is no interest rate on it. And I think we should do the right thing and pay the money back, or we're just going to be hearing about it forever that we didn't do it the right way.
Okay, my take on this is, look, nobody really wrote down what happened. That's unfortunate, and that's a lesson.
I mean, yes and no.
Oh, yes and no?
Yes and no. I mean, I have looked back through the general ledger and I have looked back, there's a way in our accounting system that different things get coded and I can see which checkbook or which, I mean, it's, if you pay, like, if you then end up paying like a big chunk back, but like the way our accounting works is like, you can kind of see, like Steve and I think our report was 700 pages. We looked at a 700-page report and we looked for like crazy, like this debt goes like this, like it's crazy. It's all over the place. And that's why and there's a couple years where there's big chunks and stuff that have happened. I think maybe with various projects, but I really do believe it's based in these due to, due from things. And I think that the former clerk just honestly, like she coded stuff right. And like, I think didn't understand then that like the money needed to be transferred between certain bank accounts and almost because they had separate bank accounts, it made it less easy for her to see that because of having like the water and the sewer accounts completely independent for whatever reason. The other thing is my recollection of like the whole annexation and what Kate did there, that was pretty cleaned up. And paying those things. And we're starting to bring that into this conversation. And I don't know that I would personally.
John, do you recall how much reimbursement, what the figure was, just roughly?
I do not. No, sorry.
I just think that this speaks to this idea that we have this outstanding debt. There was some reimbursement that was given to the district.
Well, normally due tos and due froms accumulate every year. So the water fund doesn't actually write checks to pay its bills. The general fund writes the checks. And that creates a due to the general fund from the water system. And it seems like that this is an accumulation of years where it didn't get zeroed out. Normally at the end of the year, you would zero it out.
No, your argument carries weight with me.
And I think that like what John was saying, that Bill, the mayor of a very long time, didn't really think of these as different funds. He just kind of and so I think it's just kind of this historic practice that happened. And I think I said this in our last meeting. I mean, we can keep talking about this for hours on how this happened, but, and we've done it many times in town council meetings, even with Harris.
Yeah.
But I'm more interested in kind of like moving forward, on this topic.
I'm with you.
Because I want to do this, but I do want to move forward in the right way. I don't want to move forward in this, but again, I mean, we can rehash this forever long we went teacher, but we're not going to come to an answer because it's just, we're not going to.
Well, I'd ask one thing. I mean, I think part of the reason, because of the way Bill, and I think rightly so, I mean, we're a tiny little town, we have one pocketbook and it goes to everything. But one of the big reasons was the water rates were never high enough. They were never accurate enough to actually pay the cost of operating the system. So if you can say, and I've been out of this for a little while, if the rates now can support the system, it makes perfect sense to totally separate it and treat it as a real enterprise fund, unless it needs a loan and a formal loan from the general fund. So John, you're right. We clean this up and totally separate these things. But the rates have to be right. And people balked at the raising the rates over the years. So you just have to make sure that what you do, I hate this word, is sustainable. But it sounds to me like the rates are good now. So the political process, you pay back, clean it up, and keep it separate from here on out.
I think that's right. I know Jen and I have spent a fair bit of time looking at the water rates, and we even have projected water rates out into the future, what we're gonna need to charge to stay on track to keep the water system functioning. And I do believe that rate structure will accommodate paying this loan back over a 10, 12-year period. And honestly, I think the money's there and we should move ahead with this ordinance.
Okay. When I said I thought that the past was murky, it sounds like you can track all the numbers, but we can't track is the deal.
Correct.
And the deal is not really documented well.
Well,
I mean, we have John's memory, but that's.
which is not very good.
With respect to due froms and due tos in the normal course of business, that deal's not in question. That deal is due tos and due froms get cleared every year.
Okay,
I mean, so.
but they weren't.
Just one more thing that I would say is kudos to Jen and John, because our previous accountants, I had asked them, it's like, we need a number. We need to find out what is owed, what's the real number? And they said they couldn't do it.
Okay.
So Clancy's 700-page thing, good job.
If we don't settle this now, this is gonna be with us forever. And
Let's vote.
let's vote.
When someone makes their motion, maybe it's gonna be the gentleman at the end of the table. He has some edits that I think we wanna make sure that get into the record.
I just put this one edit.
Yeah. At least in minimum are the 3 words I've added.
Right, I just wanted to give us, instead of specifying exactly the payment,
Yeah, the floor and
Right.
and a time.
yeah, I didn't put the at least.
I did that because you said if we wanna pay it off earlier, we don't wanna be hamstrung to be having it be a certain amount every year forced, right?
Right.
That language
Course
is
of
right,
at
you
least
guys just
12
edit it
years.
however you want.
Yeah, I thought that the minimum number would give us the ability to prepay it.
Okay, there you go. We can not do that.
And so the at least, I think, is actually the other side, so I would scratch the at least.
Okay.
And just say that we're gonna pay back the general fund, over the course of, it's really not more than 12 years, right?
Within the next.
Right, it would be
within-
not more than 12 years. And then the minimum number of 30,697, and that's just the equal parts of it.
Okay, so do you want to take out the at least?
Correct.
Right, just say over the course of 12 years, and the minimum, with a minimum payment of 30,000 each year.
You want to know more than?
Not more than would make sense to me, because you're saying it's, we're gonna do this minimum payment, so it's gonna retire in not more than 12 years, but we're leaving the door open to, we're drowning money in the water fund, we do Chris's new list, there's nothing else to spend the money on, maybe we would just pay the rest of it back.
Okay. I think we're ready to vote on this.
Is that your motion, John? You making a motion?
Well, I'll make a motion to approve this ordinance with a couple of small edits.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
I'll do a roll call vote because it's a
All right,
resolution, sorry.
roll call.
Mayor Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Ansel,
Absolutely.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Davis.
Yes. This is actually the second time you've put it to bed, Elise.
I know. Well,
Right,
and
it's like
Sharon
yours.
has been there too. This is the
Made
second
a big
time that
effort to
Sharon
put
and
it
I have
together,
voted on
too.
paying back the loan.
We need to just.
Okay.
But we have more defined, this is a
On
much more
item
defined.
12, discussion possible action to approve resolution 2023-R-25 regarding Alta Justice Court recertification. Can you give us a short paragraph on this? Molly?
Give a short, brief discussion. So we, as you probably know, operate the Alta Justice Court. And every 4 years, we just have to recertify to kind of make sure we're still following all the right rules, have the right policies and procedures in place, and the town just has, the council has to pass a resolution that they want to continue to support and certify the justice court as part of that, because I believe the reason is that we don't have it all comes, the finances are all for the town, we don't get financial support from the courts other than it comes to the town to support our justice court.
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
I move that we approve resolution 2023 R-25 regarding the Alta Justice Court recertification.
second, any discussion? All in favor?
Do you need a roll
Oh, do
call?
we?
It is a resolution, so yes.
All right.
Where am I at? Councilmember Ansel,
Yes.
Councilmember Byrne,
Yes,
Councilmember Davis,
Yes.
Mayor Burke,
Yes,
Councilmember Murray.
okay. All right, so discussion regarding the January town council retreat. This is actually,
This is our Chris.
yeah, that's Chris.
I said earlier today that I was gonna take the podium when I had something to talk about, so,
Yes.
you're looking marvelous.
I feel good up here. I'm starting to pretzel up a little bit, so. I want to thank you all, council members, for helping us get this session scheduled, for your open mind about it. I know the notion of, we've had several several meetings per month, at least one meeting per month the last few months beyond our regular monthly meeting. So the notion of asking you to spend most of the day with us to have a non-business oriented conversation about the future of the town might be a big imposition, but I do appreciate your open mind about that. You all approved a budget with some money in it to hire a facilitator to help us plan and conduct this retreat. And then some additional money to provide some breakfast and lunch. So thank you for doing that. The basic details of the session that we propose are for council and the kind of core administrative staff to get together on January 11th. That's been our best date for attendance, for availability. That will be the morning after our council meeting. So hopefully, I'm sure we'll keep on track of the council meeting the night before. So this page says 9 a.m. We'll have some, coffee and muffins out at 8:30 or something like that. We'll hold it at Our Lady of the Snows. We are hiring Pathway Associates, a well-known public and nonprofit consulting firm downtown. Julie DeLong is going to be working with us. This is a pretty basic, my vision for this, and the mayor and I have been talking about it for months. My vision for this is that it's really a pretty basic kind of nuts and bolts strategic planning conversation. It's an opportunity for a new town council, new staff organization. This is the first time ever in the history of the town that all 4 people in the administrative office are not the original occupants of those offices. So it's a really significant period of time for the town. It's such an awesome opportunity to kind of take a step back from day-to-day, month-to-month pressure, talk about our perceptions of our own strengths and weaknesses, the way we do business, and identify priorities. The intended outcome here is for us to have a draft list of short-term strategies and priorities so that we're all moving in the same direction. It's going to be a reset for us. And it's really important to the way that I want the council to provide input to the administration. I want to get away from firefighting and things coming up at the last minute. I want to have regular scheduled opportunities for us to get together, talk about how it's going, make sure we're on track for toward a vision for the future that we share. So I have 2 more slides here in this deck. We have kind of on the next slide, Molly, we have a timeline for the project. This is a condensed timeline. The key elements here are interviews with each of you, and then a survey that will be distributed. And the material we gather in those interviews and the survey is going to go a long way towards kind of populating our agenda and determining what it is we talk about in the session. So please do be on the lookout if you haven't already heard from Julie to schedule an interview. And then please also be on the lookout for a survey to you all, and the staff will take that survey as well. We're shooting to have a packet for you about this session. That's the Friday before the council meeting, so that's gonna be, we're roughly kind of heavy load that week. We'll have a council packet, and then we'll have this packet for the retreat session. So I don't think it'll be particularly voluminous. I think you all will have been, in conversations with Julie and hopefully with each other on the side about, what's going to take place in this session leading up to it. So hopefully it'll just sort of reaffirm your expectations and set us up for a productive few hours on your so this is a more detailed approach at the way we see the day of the retreat unfolding. These first few agenda items, substantive agenda items, strategic assessment, this is a report on the interviews and the survey results. The next 30-minute session, that's a SWOT discussion. It's a kind of it sounds a little cliched, it's a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats conversation. They're productive. They're an opportunity we don't have all the time for you all to be open about what you're worried about, what you're happy about with the town. We pivot before lunch to kind of a conversation about the future, vision of success. What does the town look like if we're doing our job perfectly? And then after lunch, we kind of pivot to the present day to see if we can get through this series of 3 substantive sessions to a shared list of priorities, a group of core strategies that we're going to use to implement that vision and move forward in unison. So, like I said, this is a pretty nuts and bolts strategic planning conversation. We haven't done stuff like this in the past. It does take some time, but in my experience, it's really valuable. And like I said, this is key to the way I want, our relationship is the organization that implements council policy. This is the way I want the message to flow. I want to have these opportunities for you to take a step back and make sure the policy is clear so that we can march ahead. So
I think this is exciting. I've been waiting for something like this. Okay.
Policy and priorities. I think, to help, I don't think we do a great job of communicating to the staff what we see as the priorities. And I know when we first got elected, you and I talked a ton about resilience in our infrastructure, and that was really our mission. And I don't think I've said those words in at least a year, so maybe it's time to bring them back.
Yeah, right. We've been talking about noise ordinances and gondolas, and those are all really important things. But resilience, it's tough to focus on resilience if you if on the future, resilience if you're focused on the present. And we have to focus on the present, but I hope we can start to have the bandwidth and have the horizon to keep the future in play.
Yeah, and I think you getting the money for the various studies that you've asked for and that we've now given you, I think that's a good step in the right direction of resilience in terms of our infrastructure.
Yeah,
Is this a public meeting?
Yeah.
Because we're all getting,
because
we're all getting together.
Just like at the council meeting, it will be open to the public. I don't think we have public input on this agenda, but
there's plenty of kind of.
Yeah, it's more of an
breaks that were-
yes.
It's kind of, I envision this more like how we run our workshops, but this is a very long workshop, but
Yeah.
yes.
And are there gonna be guests? Like the planning commission or Mr. Goldner, we're gonna invite John to attend?
Oh, yeah.
I would.
Yeah.
I don't know if we need the planning commission, not for we've had meetings before where the town council and the planning commission have done stuff together, but I do feel like this is a much needed thing between the council and our staff. And then maybe down the road, we can maybe talk about getting together in the summertime, maybe
I'm not advocating for including the planning commission per se. I was more advocating for I think John should be a special guest. So.
I did think about inviting the planning commission or having a joint session.
We've done that in the past, and I do think we should maybe think about doing that down the road. It's always been, especially now that COVID sort of like kind of kiboshed. I mean, the planning commission sort of wasn't meeting regularly, and I feel like they're just starting to kind of get back.
Yeah.
And so maybe this summer we should talk about having some
The
sessions.
planning commission is gonna have a busy year next year. We had a great discussion in the last meeting about their priorities. The relationship between the council and the planning commission is something we need to refine and determine. But I know there are also land use topics coming down the pike for them to, like land use decisions for them to make potentially, so. It's gonna be this year for the planning commission, and that's great, so.
Well, I like the nuclear aspect about it, you know, like it's our nuclear family here.
Yeah. So, you know, this, like I said, condensed timeline, you know, we've got less than a month now until we get this going. I think that's plenty of time. I think you all are gonna come to life in those interviews and provide great input on the survey. And Julie, I've seen Julie crunch one of these up
We've
before,
used Pathway
so-
Associates before, right? Have we?
We did
they-
the fundraising feasibility.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay, that's what I
And
recognize.
I worked
Yeah.
with Julie and the amazing Smith People Board Retreat
Yes.
too, and so I think her style is gonna be fantastic, and I'm looking forward to this a lot. So thank you again for your support and your open-minded about it.
Let's do it.
How's that Dave working for everybody?
Yeah, I think that's already been established. Yeah.
Unless
Yeah, we
there's some,
established that
unless
like
there's
a
some
couple
sort of
months
road
ago.
closure or anything, nothing is gonna stop us.
Subject to weather.
And the hope is that we're gonna do this live, and but it's gonna have to be
Yes,
broadcast, so.
I don't think we have to record it.
well,
Is it
I,
public meeting? Well,
But
yeah.
it's gonna be a public meeting though.
I think there's a chance that some of us might not be able to join in person, or maybe not at all. I mean, I'm not amongst those, but, so I think we'll wanna think about
Hybrid.
how to facilitate a hybrid setup.
Can it be done at Dawes? I guess the owl flies to whatever you wanted.
Yeah. I think having it available, if somebody's in a pinch and can't do it live.
Yeah.
I think their participation via Zoom would be better than not having them there.
Right.
So,
6 hours would be really long if we were all on Zoom. but-
Oh my God.
There's
And
something-
even part of it on Zoom would be really, it's very challenging for those kind of hybrid meetings when a lot of it is like woo-woo stuff,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, totally,
yeah,
not action items.
better if we were all there.
Okay, let's move on to new business. Any new business by any council members?
If I may just congratulate Elise and Dan on their wins to the next council. I know Alta is in wonderful hands. I just wanted to take this opportunity to, from the heart, thank the Alta community for the opportunity to serve them for the past 6 years. It's been a true honor, one of the greatest of my life. And so I wish you all great success moving forward, and thank you. Thank you for the gift.
Thank you.
All the good.
You adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?